But what did you? Who? Before we get into specifics, who's anybody stand out to you? If I just said to you, "Hey, man, you were at Niner minicamp," who stood out?
Yeah, I mean, Mykel looked the part, right? He's huge. He ran over a staffer by accident.
I saw you
Um,
got that. Jake got the video of Mykel Williams running over one of the Niner coaches in one of the drills.
and it was interesting. I think what was cool is being up that close and seeing it's really day one. It's really day one for these guys. And so even day one of training camp, you'll see veterans working on stuff with coaches. But these are guys that have no NFL experience. And so coaches, it's like the first day of practice, you see them up close and personal working with them on foot placement, hand placement. Chris Kasurk getting a little frustrated with some of these guys because there's a lot of work to be done. You see Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan looking on at their top pick and like just analyzing what's going on. So I thought Mykel looked the part. I was a little bit disappointed with CJ West, if we're being honest. He looked like they could round him into shape a little bit. Wasn't exactly firing off the line. But again, I loved his tape, so I'm not super worried about it. But if that's one concern I'd have. And then Nick Martin, like I didn't have, I have other concerns about Nick Martin. The speed wasn't one thing I was worried about, but he can fly. He can trigger and he can get downhill in a second. Saw that. And then Upton Stout, he looks good, looks fluid in coverage, can flip his hips and run. So I'd say Mykel Williams and Nick Martin, Upton Stout look pretty nice. And also Sebastian Valdez. He's got a little bit of a get off. So he's an interesting guy, the undrafted free agent out of Washington. I'm interested to see.
I'll tell you the guys that opened my eyes. And I was hoping that we would get a chance to see the 250 plus pound kicker, Kenny Almendarez.
He is wide.
He's a big boy. But we didn't get a chance to really see him kick, or if we did, I didn't see it. I thought the play of the day was the deep ball to Isaiah Neyor, where he just, everything that you've read about this guy. 6'4", 35-inch arms, 4.4 flat speed, ridiculous vertical, ridiculous radius. Produced at Wyoming, went to Texas, tore his knee, caught one ball, then went to Nebraska, had a decent final year. But yeah, didn't generally, when you look at his talent, his production didn't match his talent in any way, shape, or form. And yet there he was out on the practice field, and you can't help but notice the guy. And he made probably the play of the day. It was just a go ball. The quarterback led him a little bit more than maybe I think he thought he was going to be led down the sideline. And he had to kind of open it up a little bit and then show us that incredible arm length and a little bit of the vertical. And we got a chance to see it all. And he caught the ball in stride. That was impressive. I thought that was, to me, the highlight of the day as far as the passing highlight. There was a Corey Kiner run that I thought was impressive. Corey Kiner definitely is well put together. 5'10", 210. He's pretty thick, but he had a really nice run. I noticed a little bit of Sebastian Valdez. I noticed a little bit of Junior Bergen. The Niners worked out a Baylor defensive end named Steve Linton, who I thought looked really good in some of the drills. He looked fantastic, and they listed him at 248 pounds. There's no way he had to be heavier than that based on what I saw. But I thought Linton, who had a good career at Baylor, really looked good. I thought Marcus Ware, who was brought in as a tryout from
Montana State guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a little undersized. Him and Drew Moss were kind of practicing together. But Ware looked good. He's not a lot of lunging, he's never on the ground. Granted it's drills, but,
right. And there's no pads. So,
yeah. So, but Marcus Ware was out there looking good. The other guy that I noticed, I made a highlight of him. Let me see. The Niners signed the Alabama State corner, James Burgess.
Oh yeah, he's long. I would say out of any DBs, again, I was watching the D line pretty intently. I noticed Burgess. He's got a lot of length. He looks a little bit like Zoff Frazier, like a super long, sort of almost too skinny, but like sort of a physical man corner with length. He's going to be interesting if they keep him around.
He had a couple of reps. Now, I think the coaches are going to see this, what I saw. He had a couple of reps where he absolutely mirrored, and I forget who it was. Gosh, I can't remember who it was.
I mean, there's so
But
many random guys in this. It's hard to,
yeah,
and it's
yeah, exactly.
7-on-7, so it's
Exactly.
tough.
But he mirrored somebody just absolutely to perfection. At 6'2", 6'3", long arms, good athlete, good looking athlete. I that was an impressive. You're always looking for guys who can play on the perimeter, and that guy looked impressive. Now I liked him in the lead up to the draft, and he just didn't get drafted. But he's definitely big, and I don't know what his 40 time is, but he seems fast enough. That's a guy that I'll be interested to see if they sign. The other guy kind of opened my eyes, and I was asking about him, is this burner from Utah, Money Parks. I mean, this guy
was it the
is
name that did it for you?
Yeah, totally. And then all of a sudden and then the guy's electric. I mean, he's a tiny little guy, but you can see he's got major speed. I don't know what his 40 time clocked was, but I'm going to look it up later because he clearly is fast. I thought he looked pretty good running. So, and I thought Jordan Watkins looked good. I mean, in those drills that the Niners do with the receivers, he's a little thicker than Cowing. He's a little stronger, but he also has that speed. And I think he's going to be a nice player for them. I really do. I know a lot of people were very critical of that pick because of, a lot of people, Shanahan, I think Cowherd was like, Shanahan reached for too many of his own guys. I got to think he's talking about that pick just because he was the first offensive player.
Well, it's funny because Watkins Ole Miss had like a whole, slate of receivers and Trey Harris and I'm forgetting the other one who's also at the Shrine Bowl.
Juice Wells.
But yeah, Juice Wells. But meanwhile, like they weren't in the playoff. They had like the highest paid group of players, but Jackson Dart, goes to the Giants, even though he threw away I can't get over Jackson Dart. But when I watched Watkins,
are you a fan or not a fan of Jackson Dart?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm not a fan of almost any quarterback that ever plays for Lane Kiffin. It just seems like they don't transition well to the NFL.
Yeah.
Dart does have a good arm. I will say that. I think.
Yeah, but it's not as good as people say. Like if
he's not as big as people think. I mean, he's not as tall.
He's a great runner. He's a great runner. That's like maybe his best attribute. But he makes some like mind-boggling plays. I just didn't like what I saw, and I saw him choke away games in clutch moments for an Ole Miss team that like really should have been in the CFP and should have been competing with some of these other rosters. And he's like the guy. I just don't see it. But when I watch Watkins, he sort of profiles right as a burner, just as a guy who's going to run, go balls. But you watch him on tape, and he is pretty firm in his route running. Like he plants his foot hard, and I won't say he's like the snappiest route runner in the class by any stretch, but I was impressed that he has like pretty serious conviction in getting in and out of his breaks. Which I think Kyle Shanahan really has grown to value over the years. I mean, Ayuk's one of his greatest traits is that he's an elite route runner. Like you watch him run that whip route. Ricky Pearsall, he came out a really polished route runner. And Watkins, again, I'm not going to say he's the best in the class, but like he had conviction in getting out of his breaks with a really, really strong first step to plant and drive out of that break.
I don't know if there was anybody else that really stood out to you, but those were the guys to me that stood out. I liked what I saw. As far as what things that we were told in this camp, the Kubiak saying that CMC has looked awesome is probably the best news of the entire week, to be honest, because CMC is their guy, and they're going to try to get him the ball as much as they possibly can in the air, on the ground. They're going to hand it to him. They're going to throw it to him. So to hear him say, "Oh yeah, he's looked awesome," that was great to hear because there's a lot that could have been said between awesome and um,
Yeah.
I mean, they could have said, hey, he's not healthy or he's out here
I mean, they're not going to
sporadically.
say
Or,
that, but
no, but
it does seem like he's doing well.
yeah, I mean, they're doing themselves a disservice if they're telling us that he looks awesome in May and only tell us that he can't do it in July. So we'll see. But the other thing they said was, hey, he volunteered that Brock's having a really good off season. But then he was just glowing in his endorsement of Curtis Rourke. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how all the positive things he was saying about Rourke. It's pretty obvious that they feel like they've got something in Curtis Rourke. Now, it was an interesting pick. Why? Because they needed offensive linemen. And, it was the 7th round. There might not have been a guy that they liked there, but they liked this quarterback and they liked him a lot. Now, I didn't, he's out there without his helmet. He's a tall guy.
Yeah.
That's all I can really tell you.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they handle him. If they actually let him, it's going to depend how healthy he is. I would lean more expecting that they're just going to PUP him for the year, let him get healthy, let him learn, let him watch, and just see how it develops. Go from there. With Mac and then maybe Tanner Mordecai as the third, or somebody else they bring in. But again, they seem to like him quite a bit. They signed him to the deal pretty quickly. My gut though is that he's going to end up on PUP. We'll see. We'll see. They haven't made a definitive assessment either way. I would love to see him out there playing. But you're right. Yeah, Kubiak raved about him. The quotes he had said he's a big, strong thrower, a guy who stands in the pocket, goes through progressions, really good arm. Obviously, they mentioned the toughness, which is something, you go back to CJ Beathard, that's all they talked about was toughness, not to trigger everybody.
That's all he had.
They really value that in quarterbacks, especially because they don't invest in offensive line and they know you're going to take some shots at some point.
Well, and he also called him a winner, called him a leader, said he's elevated 2 programs. He's a really good young quarterback prospect that we like. We're really excited about him. So they obviously like him, and I feel good. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, if you when you're looking at your depth chart, you start with your quarterbacks, and if you're a 49er fan, I think you got to feel pretty good. I mean, you got Brock Purdy. He's young. He's coming off a great offseason, according to Kubiak. You got Mac Jones, who Kubiak's like, hey, man, this guy's an NFL starter. They clearly like Rourke. I kind of like Mordecai, and it's year 2 in the offense. I think overall, I think you can say definitively that the 49ers, at least at the quarterback position, upgraded from what they had a year ago.
Yeah, without question. I mean,
at quarterback.
Brandon Allen knew the system, but like he was, there's nothing special there. And then Josh Dobbs was like a roulette wheel where it's like, 1 out of every 4 games, you're going to get an awesome performance and the rest are going to be duds. So that's just not a viable way to operate. And having Rourke, where it's a guy that, again, you lock up a guy for 4 years for cheap. Mordecai's cheap. Mac Jones was cheap. Like, you're going to pay Brock, you're going to have some cheap depth behind it. I think you got to like what they have in the QB room right now.